Hello and welcome to Going Deeper. Now, in the fifth part of our series, Signs of New Life, we looked at a story found in John chapter 6, verses 21 to 25, where Jesus walks on the water to meet his disciples who are in darkness, in a storm, and in difficulty in the middle of Lake Galilee. Now, as you may well have picked up from this series that we're in, as well as telling his personal account of the life of Jesus from the perspective of being one of his closest friends, John is also weaving other layers of meaning into his story, which brings such a richness. We're looking at the 7 signs that John records Jesus performing, and we're seeing how they point to the new life that each one of us has in Jesus. There are other things John's doing as well, and he's also keen to show us that darkness and separation that were present in the original creation story are overcome by Jesus, who brings in the new creation. And it's those two themes of darkness and separation that I'm going to dig into just a little bit more deeply now in the context of this story from John 6. Now, if we recap, we go back to Genesis. In the original creation story, darkness is there, but God doesn't declare it to be good. We see God creating light, and he says that is good, but not the darkness. The next day, we see God separating the heavens and the earth, and he doesn't declare that to be good either. But all the rest of creation is declared to be good, or even very good. You know, God doesn't find darkness and separation from him good. That isn't how he wants us to live. He wants us to live in the light and fully in relationship with him. He allowed the darkness and the separation to create an environment where we could have completely free will to choose him out of love, not because we had to. And Genesis 3 is the story of how Adam and Eve exercised that free will to walk away from God, to come out from under his fatherhood, his love and his care, and to live independently. Now, as we come to this week's story of the disciples in their boat in the storm, we see the themes of light overcoming darkness and separation being ended. They're there again. So first of all, the light. Well, we've seen that John announces Jesus from the very start of his account as the light of the world. He writes, "In the beginning was the Word, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind." And Jesus himself says that he is the light of the world. In John 8, we read him saying, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And if we look at our story of the disciples on the lake, rowing their boat, getting into trouble, darkness is there again. It was night when they were caught out in the open water of the storm. Here, darkness is synonymous with difficulty, with struggle, with frustration, and with fear. But what we see is the light breaking through in the darkness, the light of the world, Jesus, miraculously striding into their darkness and bringing his peace, dispelling their fear and their struggle, and them getting to their destination. And separation. Well, we see the theme of that being ended here in this story too. The disciples were alone in their boat as they struggled to row in the stormy weather on the lake. Jesus wasn't physically with them, but he comes to them, doing the impossible and walking on the water to be with them. And when they invite him into their boat, he gets in, and the separation from him is completely ended. He joins them in their journey to the other side of the lake, and they get there pretty quickly with him on board. Mark adds a lovely detail to this story in his account of it, when he tells us that Jesus, who was praying alone on the hillside, he could see his disciples in difficulty on the lake. Mark writes, Jesus saw that they were in serious trouble, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and the waves. Even though they felt alone, they weren't, because Jesus was watching over them. They were actually never completely separated from him, even though they felt they were. I love those extra layers of meaning in this story. But I wonder, what do we draw out for ourselves in the here and now? What does it mean for our lives? And I think that we need to always remember, when life gets dark and we feel fearful, Jesus is the light that overcomes our darkness. When we feel alone, the truth is that we're not separated from him. He sees us always. He loves us constantly, and he always comes to our rescue, striding with ease over the waves of difficulty that overwhelm and threaten us. We can be absolutely confident that darkness and separation are ended completely in Jesus. Thank you for joining me.